Can you hear me? Okay. Do we have time for folks to briefly introduce themselves, their name and what neighborhood? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, great.
Do you want to run that?
Yeah. All right,
And can
I'll
you give me
start.
sharing
I did.
capability? Okay, you
I
did.
did.
Great.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the zoning basics training that Joan Frederickson from Bureau of Planning and Sustainability is going to provide for us tonight. And we have folks from the District 4 office and also District 1. District 1 folks are just starting and creating a land use and transportation plus committee. So we met on Monday night and I just figured I might as well invite folks, and if they were available, they could be here. So that's me, Mary Jaren Kelly from Civic Life. And let's see. I will pass it over to Claire Carter and I'll just call on folks. How's that to make this go quickly? And yes, if folks would put their name and email address, their contact information in the chat, that would be great. So Claire?
I'm Claire Carter. I'm one of the co-chairs of the LUT committee for D4C. I'm also the chair of Maplewood Neighborhood Association and the land use chair as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Nicole.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. I'm from the Old Town Community Association and also a co-chair for the D4C land use. Super excited to be here.
Thanks. Lonnie.
Hi, I'm Lonnie Gray, the Neighborhood Placemakers Network. I'm actually lurking in from District 3.
Thank you. Timothy, or TJ, right?
Yep, that's what the T stands for. Timothy John Anderson. I go by TJ, and I'm at a Goose Hollow.
Okay, thanks. Amanda.
Sorry, having some challenges getting unmuted. I'm Amanda Fritz. I'm the West Portland Park Neighborhood Association's land use chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ben.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Trim. I represent SMILE, which is a Selwood Moorland Improvement League, and I chair the Land Use Committee.
Thank you. Felice.
Oh, hi there. I'm with the Pleasant Valley Neighborhood Association.
Fantastic. Okay.
And I'm going to be not on video because it screws up my Zoom.
Okay. Okay. Understood. All right. Kathy.
Yes, I'm Kathy Gettle, and I'm with the Arlington Heights Neighborhood Association Land Use Team.
Thank you. Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm with Far Southwest Neighborhood Association, and I work on the land use and transportation.
Thank you. Lisa.
Evening. Thanks so much, Jonah and Mary, for pulling this together. Super excited. I'm with Arnold Creek Neighborhood Association, and I am a land use co-chair.
Okay. Marita.
Hello, I'm Marita Inglesby with the Hayhurst neighborhood. I'm the chair and transportation co-chair.
Okay. Thank you. Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Barnett. I'm the secretary with the Bridal Mile Neighborhood Association.
Fantastic. Thank you. Melanie.
Good evening. I'm Melanie Moon. I'm with the Pleasant Valley Neighborhood Association, and I'm the chair.
Wonderful. Thanks, Melanie. Sean.
Hi, my name is Sean Gillen. I'm just a resident in Inner Northwest. Video off because I'm a little under the weather right now. I might have to drop out.
Okay. Well, thanks for attempting to be here. Appreciate it. Let's see. I'm not going to say your name right. I'm sorry. Uwe?
Yeah, almost. My name is Uwe Hermes, and I'm
also with the Arnold Creek Neighborhood Association. I'm a co-chair for the land use with Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Steve.
Steve Montgomery. I am the land use board member for Pleasant Valley Neighborhood Association in District 1.
Thank you. Pleasant Valley represents tonight, huh?
Yeah.
And I think, let's see, we got Timothy, Valeria.
Hello, my name is Valeria Tapia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I'm one of Joan's colleagues, just here to support her.
Thanks. Thank you. Good to see you. Okay, I think we have everybody. I'm looking at the list, which keeps moving, but if I've missed anyone, I apologize. And please, besides Joan, please, pipe in if you'd like. And just a reminder, please put your contact information in the chat. And with that, I think we can get started, Joan.
Okay, technology. It's always going to be a little bit of a rough start, but I think I'm sharing, but do you
You are.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. This is funny. Okay, anyway, that's
okay. It's okay. And we are recording. People did ask for the recording, some folks who couldn't make it tonight.
Okay. All right. So I am going to do my best to manage all my buttons and slides and things. All right. I think we are good to go. So hi, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Joan Fredrickson. I am a land use planner, long-range land use planner with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I use she, her pronouns, and I am one of a number of district liaisons. But before we get started, just wanted to, say that I recognize some of the names and faces here and others I don't, but this is going to be a pretty basic overview. So if there's at any point you want to hop off, no worries, just go ahead. Understand, and if you have to hop off for any other reasons, no problem as well. I expect I'll be talking for, 30 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. This is our sort of introduction to Portland zoning. We're starting with a sort of basics of the zoning code, right? And we hope that the next module will be sort of the basics of neighborhood notifications that you get with your land use reviews. But this is the 101 for zoning. And so tonight we'll just be doing a little light touch introduction on Portland's land use planning system, just to make sure folks have some grounding in that, and then talk about the basics of zoning, right? Sort of the zoning code, Title 33, a little bit showing some Portland maps, what that looks like and how you can look up zoning there. And then touching a little bit on what the implementation of the zoning code looks like. We'll be looking at a notice, a land use review notice, but just very in a very introductory way. And we'll have time for questions throughout, and then again at the end. So as we get started, I already said I'm with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and I'm one of the district liaisons. District liaison program started in the mid-aughts. I don't know, 2003, 2004. I wasn't around then, but it's been around a long time. And as you can see from this map, there are a number of districts, 6 across the city. And then this map also shows the new city council districts as well for context. And we are part, as I said, of the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. We are only one branch of that bureau. We do the long range planning, right, for land use, but the Bureau has many other great programs, whether it's recycling or the Portland Clean Energy Fund or climate action work, community technology, graffitis, you name it, there's a bunch there. So we welcome you to visit our website and check out all the good work that BPS does. So before we get into the basics of zoning, there's some just general background slides we wanted to share about Portland's land use planning, because while zoning is an important piece, it's not the only thing, right, in zoning, in planning, in land use planning. So we wanted to make sure that you saw some of the other parts of the puzzle. To ground us today, we're just going to start by talking about a little bit about what is land use planning. And at its very basic, it's planning that helps guide and shape the future of the city. And zoning refers to the designation of land for different purposes. So we have zoning that's for housing, zoning that's for employment, manufacturing, agricultural, green spaces, education, etc. Right? So it's a way to designate land for certain things, and within that regulate those different uses. So through policy direction and regulations, the city shapes how things change. We manage and plan the use of land. We try to foster equitable outcomes. We help coordinate investments through these processes and try to preserve the built and natural environment, and also accommodate growth. Hopefully that's enlightening or helpful. And so the other piece that we have many things we want to highlight, but another piece is that Oregon's land use planning system, Portland doesn't operate or work or have planning in a vacuum. We are part of the state system, and there are 3 different levels of planning that happens. There's state, regional, and then the local level. At the state level, there are specific goals that regulate that affect how we can plan in Portland and affect the regulations that we have and the policies that we have. For example, and also the state requires that all urban areas over a certain size have a comprehensive plan, and they require urban growth boundaries and implementing ordinances and all sorts of things. So we get a lot of direction from the state, and that, especially nowadays, we're seeing a lot of extra direction from the state on a number of things. But this just sort of highlights that there are different levels of planning, and we're going to be mostly focused on the local one tonight, but just there's more to it than that, just to highlight that. And then we also wanted to highlight that while we're going to be talking about zoning tonight, the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, my bureau that I'm in, works on legislative projects, and these are things that are that set policy or update policy or create zoning code or zoning maps, and these can be As you see here, they can be specific to, lower southeast, or they can be specific to other parts of the city, or they can be citywide. They can also be more comprehensive studies about a specific topic. For example, in these slides, you see the economic opportunities analysis that's actually being updated right now, and the housing needs analysis. So they can be topic specific as well. And it's also important to point out that these legislative projects, different than the zoning code stuff that we'll be talking about, have a very set sort of process that always happens, and that involves community engagement to help develop plans and policies. And then there's a two-step sort of legislative process, which is that the plans go to the Planning Commission for hearings and recommendations, and then to City Council for further hearings, public hearings, and a final decision. So we also wanted to highlight that because it's important for you to know that the city's comprehensive plan, which was most recently adopted in 2016 and 2018, it's referred to you'll hear me going into this shorthand comp plan speak, because that's what usually it's referred to, but it's the main land use policy document that lays out the long-term vision of how the city is to grow and change over time. The plan guides decisions citywide and ensures we're planning with intention. It guides the zoning code that we'll be talking about, and many other sort of programs and elements in the city. So the comp plan is is based on a vision of Portland that's prosperous, healthy, equitable, and resilient. And that vision is supported by 5 guiding principles around economic prosperity, human health, environmental health, equity, and resilience. And so the details on the zoning code that we'll discuss tonight are related and influenced by these guiding principles and the other policies in the comp plan. In other words, the zoning code is the key tool to implement the comp plan. Because the comp plan is a policy document, it has to be translated into rules and regulations in order to be implemented. So as you saw on the last slide, one of the comprehensive plans, I'm going to want to say comp plan all the time, comprehensive plans guiding principles is equity. And while we don't have time to talk about all the guiding principles tonight, we wanted to highlight equity in practice. We apply an equity lens in planning, and we try to acknowledge past harms and work to include the voices of diverse communities in our planning work. And while we don't see the word equity right in the zoning code, I wanted to make sure that you knew that the process to get to that code language included components of this work. It also shows up in how we design policies and engage with the public. So we have, we strive to see equitable outcomes in our engagement, in our partnerships, in our policies and regulations, and in our practice and procedures.
I am in a meeting. I'm in a meeting.
I can hear you.
No. I'm in a meeting and I'm trying to finish this, and I don't know how to make the speaker go away now that I finally got it on, and I apologize. Carry on.
So another key aspect that we wanted to highlight from the comp plan within its policies, the comprehensive plan also talks about an urban design framework. And that is important because it helps guide growth by calling out areas of the city that are expected to grow and change more than others. So the urban design framework focuses on centers and corridors as hubs for growth. In a moment, there'll be a map that pops up. And these are areas in the city where policy and zoning lays the groundwork for supporting housing and services and transportation connections to create complete neighborhoods. The framework serves as a growth strategy, informs urban form, and the expected patterns of development. So a lot of the things that we'll be talking about tonight, they connect back to the centers and corridors, particularly the zoning, or I should say the zoning map. So this urban form diagram helps inform decisions about existing and future places, connections and experiences, and how those are experienced, connections and experiences between people are encouraged, and public infrastructure investments and what's needed to support these places. And so in this map, you can see it's a little bit small on our laptops, but you can see the different sort of the lines are either neighborhood or civic corridors, and the circles are either town centers or neighborhood centers, and those are scattered across the city. For example, we have St. John's at the far north of the city. We have West Portland Town Center and the far southwest of the city, and other centers like Hollywood, et cetera, throughout. Last stop before we head into the zoning code per se, a final introductory piece. We wanted to flag that there are 2 bureaus that work with the zoning code. So far, I've mostly been talking about the bureau that I'm in, the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, which is the long-range planning arm of the city. We're the bureau that writes the zoning code, and this happens through legislative processes that I mentioned earlier. We develop long-range plans, and these have the vision for the future and development. And as part of that, we set the policy and the zoning code. There's another branch, another arm of the city that is called the Portland Permitting and Development Bureau or Office of, I never know what to call them these days. But anyway, Portland Permitting and Development, PP&D for short. They are the current planning branch of the city. They do not create or change the code, but they are the ones who implement or apply the zoning code. They administer the regulations and procedures. They provide the zoning and permit assistance to community members and developers. They issue building and development permits, and they also do land use reviews. So it's very important to know that even though our bureau today is presenting and providing information about this, when you have questions specific to a site or a development, it's largely Portland Permitting and Development who you will be interacting with. They are great partners for us, so they know that we're doing this presentation, but they don't have necessarily the bandwidth right now to do it. But we have in the past partnered with them to do these types of capacity building info sessions as well. But it's important to underscore that they are the bureau that implements the zoning code. And if you receive a notice or have further questions, you'll probably be talking to them. I'm going to pause here in case there are any clarifying questions that I can answer before we go on. Mary, can you
Yeah, I
see the
don't,
chat again?
yeah, nothing in the chat.
Okay. Great. I will keep going. So next we're going to get into the basics of the zoning code, also known as Title 33. There are a number of titles that the city's charter has, and I'm sorry, that the city's code has, and this is one of them. It is the city's rule book, so to speak, for land use and development. It covers what types of buildings and uses are allowed and how development should happen and where, etc. And we'll walk through the various elements of the code and the structure of the code, and get some few quick examples of standards as well. So what is the zoning code? As I mentioned just a moment ago, the zoning code flows from the comprehensive plan, and the zoning is a key tool for implementing our plans and policies. It's a set of regulations, essentially, that govern sort of what types of uses are allowed and where. The scale, things like the scale of development, like the height, the density, setbacks, how many windows you can have, etc., and all sorts of other development standards and parameters, whether it's tree related or paving related or windows or, roof pitch or accessory dwelling use, whatever, all sorts of things. Those requirements or regulations can be found in the zoning code. So here's just a slide to highlight sort of what it might look like to translate values and goals from the comp plan into regulations, right? It's a little bit abstract, and it's not always it's not always easy to make those connections. So we just, thought we'd have an overview slide that showed sort of, in this slide, you can see that we have, comprehensive plan guiding principles and policies around human health, environmental health, resilience, those types of things. How might that show up in the zoning code? And in this case, we just have a slide that shows an example, that maybe these things can be translated into things around, providing for green features in a development, or limiting the amount of parking in lieu of, for more space for landscaping or trees, or providing for stormwater management or screening, these types of things. So these are just examples of some ways that there's a connection between the policies and the zoning code. And here is the sort of the basics, right? Our zoning code has a number of, it's organized into a number of series of chapters. We have the base zones. We have the 200s, which are some additional use and development regulations. There is the 400s, which is our overlay zones, and the 500s, which is our plan districts. 600s is the chapters that govern land divisions and plan developments. 700s are the code administration and processes chapters. 800s has different land use reviews. And then we have, I think, a very, very useful and interesting set of chapters. They're called general terms, but it's really the chapters that have the definitions and different measurements, ways to measure things. That's in the 900s. So so we don't have time to go through everything today, but we will try to highlight key things from the base zones, a few things about the 200s, 400s, and 500s chapters. So in the base zones, it's a good starting point because it's the foundation for everything. When you have a question about zoning, you always have to start with the base zones. And we have 6 base zone chapters. We have single dwelling zones, which you can see on the right of this table. You can see the different base zones that fall into the single dwelling zone category. And similarly, we have multi-dwelling zones with the zones, corresponding zones to on the right side, commercial mixed-use zones, employment and industrial zones, campus and institutional zones, which is a newer player on the scene that came about with the most recent comp plan update, and the open space zones as well. And then on the right here, you just have some examples of the different types of developments that you might see in some of these residential, commercial, mixed use, or general industrial zones. And here's a pretty interesting slide. It shows how the zones are generally distributed across the city. You can see that we're a city of a lot of single dwelling zoning. And that's shown in the yellow. We're at 41% single dwelling. And then you see the other colors that I mentioned as the base zones: multi-dwelling, commercial, employment, industrial, et cetera. But it's important to highlight that while that there's a lot of single dwelling zoning, and R5 is actually one of the most common residential zones across the city. And if you recall the concept of centers and corridors, most of the areas that are zoned for multi-dwelling and commercial mixed use, which you would see here in blue and red, are areas that correspond with those centers and corridors from that urban design framework. And so, yeah. So the other thing that I would say here, I could say it somewhere else, but we didn't really know where to say, but the fact that we designate something with zoning, right? So some area might have mixed use commercial zoning, but the existing development may be a single house or an apartment building per se, for example, doesn't mean that immediately it's going to change, right? This is a long-term aspiration. So that development may change over time into that mixed-use commercial to match that commercial mixed-use designation, but it may take years to happen. So that's just something else to keep in mind when we're talking about zoning. And here's just another slide that continuing our discussion of sort of the 6 base zone categories. Here's just another simplified way to look at what the different uses allowed in these base zones are. Here you have the open space, and you have a little symbol that said, clearly shows that basically open space and recreational uses are the primary uses allowed. In the single dwelling zones, it's residential. Sometimes it's not just one little house anymore. Maybe it's a number of little houses, but it's still meant for lower scale residential uses. And then we have the multi-dwelling zone, which is also residential uses, but more of the, sort of more units and maybe smaller apartment buildings, larger apartment buildings. And then we get into the commercial mixed use zone. As the name says, it's mixed use. So it allows for residential uses, retail, commercial, employment, office uses, all those things. And then we have the employment and industrial zones, which are that are designed for more employment and industrial and office uses. They have some limited commercial uses allowed, but for the most part, they're limited in size so that they don't overwhelm the area, and that the area can continue to be meet its main purpose of serving employment and industrial uses. And then we have the campus institutional zones that are intended for medium and larger campuses that are either educational or otherwise campus uses. And so while while this slide was very simplified, what it looks like in the zoning code is very different. This is what the use table looks like in the zoning code. This is an example from the commercial mixed use zone base zone chapter from chapter 33-130. And oops, I'm just too many things to click. Here you have, this table shows all the different zones that are considered commercial mixed use here across the top. And then here on the side, you have all the different use categories. And then the table here, it shows what's allowed in each zone. So for example, if you are in I'll take this first one here, now I'm forgetting what it's called. Anyway, let's do the CM1, mixed use commercial one. If you are, let's see, office use, for example, it's not allowed outright. You may be allowed to have some office uses, but it's going to be L limited. And then the zoning code lays out what are the circumstances under which you might be able to have some office uses in that zone. So that's just a way to show that a lot of the information that we're going to be talking about tonight is just sort of high level, but that the zoning code has a lot more detail, and it's sometimes a little bit less friendly, but it's got everything you need in there. And then, yeah, we also wanted to, before we got any further, talk about sort of the zoning map. And we've been talking about these base zones, and these base zones, they show up on the zoning map. Every property in the city of Portland, if it's not in the public right-of-way, has a zone applied to it, a base zone applied to it. And these you can see here on the left in this map show up as these uppercase letters and numbers. So we talked about R5 being very well represented across the city. That's a single dwelling zone. In this map, you also see that there are areas of commercial mixed use 2, multi-dwelling residential 2, single dwelling R25, all these things. So this is the zones correspond to the regulations in the zoning code. In this case here, you see the base zones, and you would go, if you have for example, R5 and you want to know what the regulations are, you would go into the base zone chapter and look up. You could see those regulations there. And then this just is a zoom in of what those base zones look like. And here's just an example to sort of dive into just a bit into the base zones, the single dwelling base zones, and the development types allowed. So some examples of low density residential zones are R7, R5, and R25. And we mentioned that these are, the uses allowed are only residential. And so the types of housing allowed there's a variety of housing types allowed. Single dwelling, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, nowadays a lot more cottage clusters, and accessory dwelling units as well. And then on the right, we just have some examples of some of the residential infill options that we're seeing today and that have been changed and allowed in the zoning code in the last 5+ years. We have a clarifying questions break if anybody has any questions.
Yes, There were 2 questions in the chat, and we can also take any hands. Let's see, Melanie, what did you say here? Melanie, what was your question?
I wondered, it was earlier, I didn't get, I
Yeah,
wasn't quick
yeah.
enough. But when you were talking, you showed the map of commercial centers across Portland.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how those are determined.
Yeah. Well, so that's a bigger question, but part of it is that there was analysis done of where there might be where it would make sense to have centers across the city. Some of it was based on where there was already existing commercial development, right? So we have a number of streetcar main streets and other types of centers, like St. John's was its own town, right, before it got incorporated into the city. So there are some sort of historic elements that influence sort of where these centers will go. But when we did the most recent comprehensive plan in the teens, the urban design framework sort of analyzed where it would make sense to have sort of different centers and designated them through the urban design framework in the comprehensive plan. So that's what drives where those are. That's a very short answer. I don't know if that helps.
Okay.
Thanks, Joan.
Then there's a question from Claire and also a couple from Felice. So Claire? She says, what does the number represent? I think with
Thank
the
you.
R5 and so forth.
Are those obsolete now?
They are they're a lot less meaningful than they used to be. Let's just say that. So it used to be that R5 signified our 5,000, right? 1 unit per 5,000 square foot site area, but that's no longer the case. So that there is a little bit of a disconnect now between our zoning nomenclature and what's allowed in the zones.
So the short answer is the numbers mean much less than they used to mean back when the zone code, the map was first done. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
But are they rough? Is it roughly like 5,000?
No.
No, it's not even. It's not even. Okay.
Yeah. But it does signify sort of a different, it's more about, is it a single dwelling zone or is it more of a, or a multi-dwelling zone? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So Felice.
Kind of a murky area right now. Yeah.
Okay. I see some from Felice. I see Marita's hand and Steve's hand. So I'll just maybe, oh, and Madison also. If folks don't mind, I'll just read out your questions. So Felice has 3 questions, or 2 or 3. I'm curious about green roof zoning and PDX and whether it is even a zoning issue. And the second one is wondering about the recent city council trip to Vienna and if the intent was to affect zoning plans. So the first one's about green roof zoning and if it's even an issue.
So I'm not sure. So this is a little bit in the weeds. We might want to keep going, but I'll just say that I'm not sure what the question is around green roofs. There are some regulations that intersect with green roofs. But I'm not sure I get your question. If it's even an issue, I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, sorry. This is Felice speaking. So I had gone to a green roof conference a year ago, and Portland and Toronto have the largest amount of green roofs in North America. And at the conference, they said that Portland had I don't know if they called it zoning, but requirements for green roofs. And I know that the new music venue somehow got out of putting up a green roof.
Mhm.
So if this is too much in the weeds, no worries. I was just curious about it.
Yeah, I'm not the expert on this, but I'll just give you the short answer. There are some regulations that, like for example, for design reviews, where you might have a green roof as an option to meet those standards. In other cases, it's more of a technical thing where they need the green roof to meet their stormwater requirements. So it wouldn't be so much about zoning, but it might be about meeting their infrastructure requirements. So it's a little bit.
Thank you.
And her other question was, if you know,
I
if
don't
there
know.
needs to, okay, that's safe. Oh, okay, Maria Sipin is here. Maria, if you want to speak rather than me speaking for you, go for it. She's going to answer the Vienna question, I think.
Great.
Sure. I just pasted in the chat a link to the City of Vienna's website explaining the relationship of code changes and how it enables the kind of non-market rate housing development that is ideal for affordability and meeting people's needs. Full disclosure, I am Councilor Mitch Green's Chief of Staff, and I attended the trip in Vienna. Not specifically for zoning code purposes, but I think to really understand all the different policies that can enable the kind of long-term, affordable, deeply affordable housing solutions that we need.
Great. Thank you. Okay, yeah, I see your comments. Madison's question, is there a limitation to one ADU per single family residence / multi-family residence?
No, you can have 2 ADUs. If you, depending on the zone, right? I don't know what zone you're asking about, but in the single dwelling zones, yeah, you can have a variety of things.
Okay. And I think Marita's hand is up, and then Steve, and then there's a few more in the chat. Got a lot of questions, Joan.
Yeah, and there's more time
Okay.
afterwards too. I have more to go
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
Well,
Should we? Okay.
Joan,
Take
my
another
question is
question.
about
Yeah.
single dwelling. Is there any talk about taking that nomenclature just off the charts because it doesn't mean single anymore?
Yeah, and that may be something that comes up next time we do updates.
But you haven't heard of anything like that. Okay.
There's nothing in the works right now. There's
Thanks.
there's too many other things to do than.
Thank you.
Steve, did you have a question? Let's see. Okay, we'll come back to Steve. Timothy, TJ says, with our needs, has there been an idea to repeal the skyline law of height restrictions in the city? Have we thought of maybe repealing some of the height restrictions for the sake of large buildings possibly being built?
So I think there's all kinds of conversations happening. I don't know if there's one specific around that. I know that the housing needs are foremost in everybody's minds, and they're looking for ways to find opportunities to to support and promote more housing. But I don't know if that's one of the pieces that's being considered or discussed.
Okay, and then lastly, Valeria, did you want to share what you wrote?
Sorry. So yes, I just mentioned that we are keeping track of all the comments shared today and all the questions that community members here are raising, so we can shape some future ABC sessions around community interest. So anything that you're wondering, we're likely going to try to review and integrate into another module. And just remember, this was intended to be kind of a zoning 101, so it doesn't really get into the weeds just yet. And we acknowledge that. So thank you.
Great.
Thanks
And
for the idea.
yeah. And Steve, did you still have a question? I see your hands. No?
He's struggling
Okay.
to unmute, Mary.
Okay.
So
All right. Let me, because I actually muted him. Okay. Let me find him here, and then Joan, we'll give it back to you. See, lost him. Okay, here he is.
Did that go?
There you are. Okay.
Excellent. I had a question. When I looked through all the, you showed all the stuff, I didn't see anything about residential improved zoning. What is that? I noticed that our property, actually, we was always rural residential farm and forest because we raise animals and we have a farm. And then now all of a sudden it doesn't say that no more. It says residential improved. I've always wondered what that even means.
Yeah. So is that the county assignment?
I have no idea. It's when I look at Portland maps. And
Huh.
also, we were always RF R7. And then all of a sudden now we're R20. When I look at Portland maps, it says R20 residential improved. I'm like, what's that? But you're saying the R20 doesn't matter anymore? So it's not about 20,000, one building every 20,000 square feet?
Well, it's a little bit different in the much lower density zones. So but the residential improved, I think it's probably a county as a tax description of the use or something. But it's not the zoning. The zoning is the R20 or the R7 or the RF. Well, those are the zoning pieces.
So would that be a form of downsizing or downzoning then if you went from R7 to R20?
Yes.
Why would they do that?
I don't know the specifics of what property we're talking about or what the situation was. There was a little bit of downzoning in the most recent, in the 2016-2018 comprehensive plan update. And that was due to in areas particularly that had natural hazards. In some places across the city, they did downzone because of the concerns for being able to provide services, being able to, limit, development there so that to support natural hazard mitigation. Yeah.
So is there a way I could get a hold of you? What was your name?
My name is Joan Fredrickson. I will put my name in the chat when we're done. So you have my contact information, and certainly Mary, anybody in District 4.
I can help. Yeah. I can help
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Thanks. All right, Joan, it's all yours.
Thanks. So keeping in the base zone department, so to speak, in addition to describing sort of the uses allowed in each base zone, the zoning code also has it also gives development standards, right? So it charts like what the building height is for each zone, what the allowed bulk or mass, setbacks, front door locations, window coverage, floor area ratio. All those types of things are spelled out in the zoning code in the base zones. And here on the right, you see the graphics just shows you a couple of examples from the zoning code where it shows exactly what where the different regulations apply and what those standards are. Of course, the zoning code also has this, which is another table that shows has the oops, that one doesn't have highlights. Like the other one, it has the zones across the top of the chart, and then down the left-hand side, it has, and this is a multi-page table, so this is just an excerpt of it, but it shows, for example, the minimum density in each of these zones, the minimum step down height, if there is one, or floor area ratio, that type of thing. These are all governing standards. And these are laid out in the zoning code for each base zone. So each base zone will have a table like this for uses and a table like this for the standards. And these are just sort of summary tables. The code also lays out section by section all the specific regulations. So this would just be sort of a shortcut, but then you could look deeper at the specific regulations. And this is just a slide if anybody had any questions about what floor area ratio is, because sometimes we get those questions. This is one of the standards that regulates the building mass. The ratio is about how much ratio of what's allowed, of what amount of building floor area is allowed in relation to the site area. So, for example, if your floor area ratio is 1:1, that allows, and you have a 10,000 square foot site, then you would be able to have 10,000 square feet of building, whether it's in 1 story or in 2 stories and you only cover 50% of the lot, or in 4 stories and you cover 25% of the lot. And how you use your floor area ratio is also impacted by other standards, right? So if you have a height limit that only allows you to go 3 stories, then you're going to have to use your allowed floor area in a different shape across the site. So it's shaped not just by the amount of floor coverage you're allowed, but also height, setbacks, and maximum site coverage, these types of things. That's a little bit weedy, but we just thought we'd include it just in case there was anybody with questions. So now we're getting ready to leave the base zones behind, and we're going to talk about a few of the other chapters that are very common. This next section that we're going to talk about is a series of chapters called the 200s, and these are our additional use and development regulations. In other words, they're not zone specific, but they are related to they're related to a specific use. For example, in this section, you'll find a chapter all about accessory dwelling units, right? And the requirements that those need to meet. There's a very well-used and loved chapter on landscaping and screening requirements. Also very well-used parking and loading chapter, non-conforming situations chapter, etc. So this is where you'll find a number of other regulations that overlay on top, maybe not overlay is the right word, but that also apply to development that you've looked up in the base zone. So you have your base zone, and then sometimes, depending on what's proposed, you might also have some additional regulations that you have to comply with that are in this 200s section. Hopefully that makes sense. And then we have some pretty pictures on the side. And then the next other series of chapters that we want to call out is the overlay zones. So these overlay zones are, so you have your base zone, and then you have a small letter that denotes, as you see here on the side, a potential overlay zone. And these regulations address specific topics. So, for example, in the overlay zones, the most common ones are design overlay zone, environmental overlay zone, River Greenway, Centers Main Street. All these types of things are overlay zones, and they also have an additional set of standards and potentially reviews needed associated with development. So the zoning, the map here on the side, you can see sort of an example of different overlay zones. So here, it's kind of hard to see, but you have a commercial mixed use 2 zone with a small d and h. That means that it has a design overlay and the airport landing overlay. And then in this one, there's also a little m, and that stands for the Center's Main Street overlay. So these are all additional layers of regulations, requirements that get added to the base zone. So typically, when you have a single dwelling zone, you don't have typically a lot of overlay zoning. It's unless you have an environmental review, right? Or an environmental overlay zone. But oftentimes when you have a commercial mixed use zone, you might see, you might see a design overlay, or you might see a Main Street overlay. So it's a little bit more common in those situations. As I said, it's applied in conjunction with the base zone, and it can modify the regulations of the base zone. We also have another series of chapters called plan districts, and these are not regulations related to a specific topic, but they're related to a specific geography, a specific area, and they are applied again in conjunction with the base zone, and they also modify the regulations of the base zone. We have a couple of examples here. We have the St. John's Plan District and the Gateway Plan District. These are areas, sorry, I'm trying to read. So, these regulations, the regulations that are in the plan districts will in some cases supersede the regulations that are in the base zones. So for example, you might have, the base zone might say, your height is 50 feet or something like that. But there might be special provisions in a plan district that says, no, you can go up to 75 feet if you do X, Y, Z, right? So there are the provisions in the plan districts will supersede that of the base zones because they're more specific to the geography. If that makes sense. And so we just wanted to put them all together for you, see if it made any sense. If it made sense. Here's an example of where we have a commercial mixed use 2 zone with a design and Center's Main Street overlay. And here you can see the alphabet soup at the top, right? It's CM2 for the commercial mixed use 2 zone, and a small d for the design overlay, and the little m for the Main Street overlay. And these are in the Gateway Plan District. So this is an example of a site situation. And so these are the different zoning pieces that would apply. We have the commercial mixed use 2 base zone. So that chapter applies. And then we have from the 200s, we might have, inclusionary housing standards, landscaping standards, parking standards. These are all things that are related to a use that might be proposed there. And then in the 400s chapters, we have the Center's Main Street overlay and the design overlay standards that would apply. And then finally, we also have the Gateway Plan District regulations that would apply. So you can see how it can be quite layered and it can get kind of complex. But the important thing to remember is that there is always the base zone. And if you have regulations in the plan districts or overlay zone that are in conflict with the base zones, then the plan district supersedes the base zones. So there's sort of a hierarchy. Okay, I'm stopping again, but I can maybe keep going because we got quite a few questions last time. And
yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I don't see any new questions.
And hopefully there'll be time at the end if I can get through get through everything. And so now we're just going to take a quick break from the zoning, and we're going to look at some examples of Portland maps and the Portland zoning app. So the examples of the zoning that we have been talking about, this is information. As I said, every site in the city has a zone, a base zone, and sometimes overlay zones and plan districts, exactly, for example, assigned to them. And you can go online to Portland Maps and put in your address, and then it'll show you, for example, we have this random 706 Northeast Prescott example, and you go on there and it'll show you on the right-hand side, it'll give you, in blue, you can see that it's got the city council district noted, it's got the zoning noted, and it provides some basic assessor information from the county, et cetera. You can also look at permits and these types of things. So it's a great resource for information. If you click on the zoning piece, it'll show you the zoning for the area, so you can see the site in context. Maybe it's next to a commercial zone, or maybe it's in a sea of, residential zoning. And then if you click on the little R5 residential 5,000 button, it'll give you, it'll show you an explanation of what that, a high level explanation of what that is. And see, here's the zoning example. We've clicked on it and it sort of shows you how the zoning is in the area. So it'll show in color. And then if you click on that, actually, let's see. If you had, there's a, I'm just going to pause this. So outside of Portland Maps, we also have this Portland zoning app that you can go on, and it describes the different zones. It shows you what the zoning is across the city. And this is just a little video showing you sort of, you can zoom in. And then on the side, there's a legend that has all the different the zones, and you zoom in and out and you can see the zoning. You can see in some cases there's overlay zones, in other cases it's just the simple base zone. And you can sort of explore these tools. It's a great way to learn more about your neighborhood, learn more about different zones across the city, and what the development and what the patterns are.
Joan, could you, there was a question here, also point out, I don't know if you can get to it, the land use PPD reports that are shown on the lot information on Portland Maps. Claire, are you referring to where you report nuisances and those types of things?
No, I am referring to when you go to, a lot and you click on it and then you pull up the information, it will list if there's activity, recent permits submitted, it will list those permits, but I have never figured out how to actually get to the reports. And I am wondering if, there is a way to do that, or if there is another portal. And I think there is another portal that you have to get into, that you have to have, your own like password and stuff, but it's through the Permit Development Center, Portland Planning. Is that, do you know more about that?
So when you say reports, do you mean like the land use review decisions or building permits? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, the information on, it's good to have. I'm not so interested in old stuff or things like, mechanical permits and stuff, but certainly, land use permits and the building permits that may show what the footprint of a new building is going to be like.
Yeah.
Is there?
So that I'm not 100% sure how to get there. I know that they once the building permit is approved, they do scan those permits, they digitize those permits, but it's not until after it's approved and issued. So you can't, because before they're approved and issued, they are still changing, right? So they don't want to put anything out there that's not final. But I'd have to look back with you, Claire. I think you might be able to. So if there's this little advanced button up
That's
here,
what I was thinking.
you may be able to get there through there, but I'd have to loop back with you and see.
Yeah.
Okay, just wondering, because so frequently I'd like to get to that extra information, and it would be great to have not the decision, but to actually be able to see the staff reports on land use stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes
through Portland Maps, but maybe that's just like maybe that is.
I feel like I've seen it
difficult.
under permitting, or I'll look at it. But
Right,
Valeria
right.
in the chat here put the link. So if you wanted to hunt around for what Joan just showed us, check that out. And then there's another question here. Does Portland Maps indicate areas with toxic materials from historical environmental activities? If not, does the city keep a record of these kinds of areas?
So I think the only thing that Portland Maps will show, and you have to kind of dig for it, is I think they might show the like oil tank history. Sometimes there's like an old fire permit or something that has documented that there's a leaking oil tank, but I don't think there is any brownfield data on the Portland Maps, but that's a good question. We can see.
And I think, and Lisa put in here, there's a brownfields link. But when you go to that advanced and also the gallery, there's so much information in there that you might find that. And also there's city archives if you're really looking for something historical.
Yeah. Joan, that link, the brownfields, I put that there too. There actually is DEQ references somewhere on this map for properties that have past contamination. So
but
it is on there.
Is it oil tanks, or is it general, like there was a gas station?
It's a bit of a mix.
Okay,
I
good.
think it's a bit of a mix. You have to kind of poke around. It's not very clear, but
great.
Like it'll
Thank
connect
you.
to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality report, and it'll talk about it. But yeah, it's a little bit of digging.
It's not linked from Portland Maps, though.
It says it's Portland Maps, but it's not necessarily Portland Maps. It's kind of Portland Maps holds a gallery of different maps.
Great.
So it's one of those maps in the gallery.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Well, let me just keep going, because
Yeah.
there's a little bit more and we're getting close on time. Goodness gracious. And so this is an example. When I said if you click on the zone, you can see a description of the zone. And you can see here on the right-hand side, a description of the R5 of the residential 5,000 zone. And it sort of just shows you sort of the types of uses allowed. So there's just a little bit more information. It's a high level description, but it shows you some information about the zones and some quick facts, so to speak. And then we have a similar example, but for the commercial mixed use 3. And again, it just shows you sort of, this is through the Portland zoning app, and shows you, some quick facts about what's generally allowed and sort of what are the expected heights and these types of things. Oh, it keeps anyway. And there's a little bit about the D overlay as well. So The point being that there are a lot of resources online to help folks sort of understand more about what all these letters and numbers on these maps mean. And I'm just going to keep going because we're really short on time. And we wanted to, this is not the focus of this ABCs, but we wanted to make sure we touch base a little bit on implementing the zoning code. There's going to be other modules that will cover this a little bit more, but this is our final section just to go over a little bit about how the code is implemented and provide a little sneak peek about our Notices 101 module. So the zoning code gets implemented in two ways. There is a non-discretionary sort of process, and that is that's based on clear and objective standards from the code, and generally that's comes in the form of permits. And then on the other hand, we have a discretionary track that's based on subjective approval criteria that are found in the zoning code, and that takes the shape of land use reviews. So it's very important to understand that there are these two different sort of types of ways that the zoning code gets implemented. Permits are by and far the most common way that we see the zoning code get implemented, and it's all sorts of things from building permits or permits to get a fence or all kinds of things, and those are the zoning code gets applied. The standards, it's very prescriptive, right? The standard says you can't be over this high, you have to be set back this much. So somebody comes in with a building permit and shows that they're meeting the standards, then their permit from a zoning perspective would get approved. On the other hand, when you have discretionary reviews, the staff person has to look at the approval criteria and make a judgment as to whether the proposal can meet those approval criteria or not. So that's very important to understand that. The non-discretionary reviews provide the certainty needed in most situations by providing straightforward, clear, and objective standards, whereas the discretionary reviews provide some flexibility by allowing more subjective standards and objectives and providing the ability to have conditions of approval and respond more specifically to specific site characteristics or situations. And here's just another example in that vein. Another term that you'll often hear is by right development, and that's proxy for non-discretionary review or non-discretionary process. And those are typically, as I said, building permits based on clear and objective standards. Usually there's no notice or public comment related to these. It's a staff review. And so in addition to the zoning code, then they also have to meet the building code. But those are there's very clear parameters about what's allowed and what's not allowed. If they decide that they, instead of having the required 5-foot setback, they want to have a 3-foot setback, then that bumps them into a discretionary review. But if they can say, nope, we're going to check all the boxes, right? And they can show that they're checking all the boxes numerically, then they get to just have a non-discretionary review. Again, if they can't meet those or don't want to meet those for some reason, then they would go through a land use review. And in some cases, people don't have an option to go through the non-discretionary review. For example, if they can't, they'd have to go through the discretionary review. That's more in cases of like conditional uses and things like that. But anyway, I'm going off. This is pretty common stuff here. And you'll see it a lot in development in the neighborhood. You know, you won't see a notice or anything, and you'll be like, where'd this come from? It's because it's going through the non-discretionary review process. And then just to call out a few things about land use reviews. This is a these are the they're also they're also known as quasi-judicial reviews. That's the other name that they're called, but they're subjective and they require judgment based on approval criteria. There is notification and opportunity for public comment. There is always a written decision that explains the basis for the decision. So how the staff, what the staff says about how the proposal meets the approval criteria, that will all be documented in a written decision. And sometimes, depending on the level of the case, there's a variety of levels from 1 to 4. Sometimes some levels of review have a hearing with a hearings officer or a hearing before the design commission or historic commission. And in some cases, if it's a type 4, they'll go before the city council as a first hearing body. And there's often the opportunity to appeal as well. But just like the staff has to review the proposal against approval criteria, anybody who wants to contest or write in about the proposal needs also to address the approval criteria. So it's one of the bases. And then these are some common land use reviews that you'll see that you might get a notice for: land divisions, adjustments, conditional uses, design reviews, historic resource reviews, and environmental reviews. This is the same thing, just a different way to show it. And then this is just a sample of a land use review notice. And I had some other slides, but I'm just gonna do this one. This just shows you sort of whenever you get a land use review notice, which we'll talk about more in another module, but it'll always have the staff assigned contact information at the top, a case number here, site information, who the applicant is, who the property owner is, and it'll have the comment period called out, like when you have to have your comments in. That's in the first paragraph there. And it'll have the zone for the site address, what type of what type of review it is, whether it's a type 1 or type 2 review, and what the zoning is for the site, etc. So there's a lot of information that's provided that connects in some cases. So you would look here and say, oh, what's the base zone, right? And you could go into the zoning code and look at that. And it could also, it also tells you, the notice will also tell you what approval criteria will be used to make this decision. So, okay, I'm going to stop there because it's 7:53. But I want to, let me just zoom ahead and say thank you and see if there are any other questions. And here's some other resources that you all can check out. There's also, you can always reach out to PP&D, permitting and development, with questions about development that you're seeing. You can call, they have a zoning hotline, so you can call and ask questions. Usually they'll call you back. And if you have more in-depth questions, you can always make an appointment to get more information. So there's a lot of resources out there, but I'm going to stop talking and stop sharing so I can answer more questions.
Joan, let's see, there were a few. One is there a designation in the zoning code for landslide areas, specifically limiting what types of building can occur there?
So let me think for a second. So there are a few things. So the city does have a generalized landslide hazard map. And so that's mapped across the whole city. And if the property is within that designated area, then more information will be required when someone comes in to do a land division or do a development permit. I don't know a lot of details about beyond that, but I know that they would probably get triggered for some additional review. But I don't know if there's something more to your question.
Yeah. Ben, anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, thank you. Basically, just how do you find that information? Like, how do you, yeah.
How do you find out if something is in a landslide hazard
Correct.
area? Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It should be, I think it's right there on Portland Maps, right
You know what?
when you
Let me
open it
just
up.
let
Yeah.
me just now that I'm off my PowerPoint, I can I can just do normal screen share. Hang on just a second. Let's see. It might be in the advanced
That's what I mean.
section if you go to the
For the
gallery.
gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just share my screen again, if you don't mind, if you will be so gracious as to window. Where are you? Here you are. Okay. So if you go, oh, can you see that? Or did I make it go? Okay, great. So so if you go to this, so I came from the regular Portland Maps. I went to advanced, and then I landed here and I went to gallery. And so then each bureau sort of has, and so there is a geologic hazards, maybe? That doesn't look right.
I feel like I've seen it
yeah.
right when you type in the, just in the regular,
Oh,
the very
really?
first thing. Yeah.
It is a geologic.
Is it the geology one? Okay, let's look. Let's see. I'm not sure. Oh, yes, maybe, but this is more than just landslide hazard. So, I guess we can explore this, but there has to be a way to. So you're thinking that it's here.
Yeah, I thought, yeah.
If you do a search on your browser and put in Portland landslide map,
Okay, yeah, that's
it'll
going to
take
do
you
it.
to map app.
Yeah.
And it said it was adopted in 2002 and is being improved.
Let's see what we get. So it takes you to the map app. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so that's one way to do it is to go through the map app. I didn't even realize this was on the map app, but this is great. But this is the land division update code project. Okay, no, this shows it, but it's not, yeah. It's not, there's more that they're showing here than the landslide, than the map. So, but it's a good resource. It looks like it was updated in 23, yeah, or 24.
So one other question I see here in the chat, does FIR, the Field Issuance Remodeling Program, live more in the discretionary review process?
So the Field Issuance Remodel Program is part of Planning and Development Bureau. And it's really a building permit review process. So I don't, so in many cases, they come in for a building permit, and in some cases it's, an addition of a garage or something, right? And folks who are registered with the Field Issuance Remodel Program, they have a set of inspectors that are assigned to them, to that program. They still have to submit building permits and all that stuff, but it's seen as a more expedited way to get your inspections done more quickly. And then also, I believe that they can sign off on changes in the field, but that's the extent of my knowledge there. But it's not a discretionary review. No, it's not considered a discretionary review. If they are making decisions in the field, it would not be about something that's based on approval criteria or anything like that. No. And it wouldn't be zoning things that they would be making judgments in the field. It's probably all building code stuff.
And Amanda has asked, have you given this training to the city council?
Is Maria still with us?
Doesn't look like it.
No.
Looks like she's gone. Okay.
No, but I know that there was a lot of interest in getting some more training on a variety of topics, and I think they got a comprehensive plan training, and I'm not sure if they've gotten others yet, but I know that there was a whole list of things that they were thinking of getting trainings on from BPS, probably others as well, but not this one in specifically, no.
Well, any last questions?
Well, it's a very good training. Thank you, Joan. I'm just wondering, are you going to do another one on specifics of residential zoning and what's now allowed, please?
That is great to get that request. Yeah, the idea was to sort of roll out a couple of very basic high level ones, so this zoning code one, and then one on notices. And then hear what people want to learn more about, right? And have these modules as a foundation so that folks can, take their prerequisites before they come to no, I'm joking, but have a, have a sort of a basic 101 before they, as they learn other things too. So.
Yeah, I think there's many of us on this call who have I appreciate the overview. And I personally am baffled by what's going on in my neighborhood. So I'd really appreciate the specifics for the residential zoning.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, there's been a lot of change. So, and there's a lot of, there's just a lot of change, not just locally, but at the state level as well. So there's, we are trying to adapt and be responsive and all those things. So,
yeah. Yeah. Well, Joan, thank you. And Valeria, thanks so much for your work.
Thank you so
thanks,
much.
everybody. Sorry I couldn't see everybody during the presentation, but yeah, thanks for joining. And you can always reach out to Mary, who can connect us to you, or you can reach out to us directly. Now that I'm open, I'm going to put I don't know if you already put my contact information in there, but I'm going to do it right now. Yeah, reach out if you have questions. We can't always answer them, but we can connect you with other folks and do our best to get you the information that you need.
And this show will go on the road in the other districts as well, right?
Yeah, so you'll have another opportunity November 13th. Valeria and maybe Kevin, I'm not sure, will be doing this same presentation for District 2. So there's another opportunity for folks who weren't able to attend tonight, or for anybody who wants to hear it again. from a different angle, not from a different angle, but from a different voice, can join in November.
And then we'll probably hope to take one over to East as well. But it was
Yes.
good. It was good to have some East folks here tonight.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mary, for extending the invitation to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll have it recorded, but I think we're also hoping to record it in the future and have it on the BPS website as well. So
Great. That's wonderful.
you're our first guinea pigs. So we'll see.
Yes, love it. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all your good questions.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Did we stump a planner, right? That's always been my goal.
There were a few ones that are kind of tricky sometimes, but it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
All
Have a
right,
good night,
have
everybody. Thank
a
you.
good night. Bye-bye. Okay. Okay, there you are. I was just looking at the chat. Whew, there's a lot of questions there. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was just trying to copy some of the chat because I can't, since I'm not the meeting person, I
I
can't.
copied it.
Okay.
I copied it. Yeah, I got it. I copied it a couple times because I want to capture some of those contacts. But yeah, I got it. Don't worry. I'll share it with you guys.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. All
Brilliant.
right, take it easy. You did good.
Yeah, no, it was a little bit rocky, but it's okay. That's okay. It happens.
It's long. It's long.
It's long. We tried to make it short, but it's just long.
Well, maybe it should be 2 parts. I don't know. I know. I
Yeah.
mean, we had up to 24 people.
Great.
And I think 1 dropped off, so it was 23. So just so you know, I don't know how some of these people, right? Did you guys share it?
Well, we put it on our website and
Oh, you
shared it
did?
with the
Oh, okay.
cities on the city's communications thing. I can't keep track of what the city does anymore.
Oh, I
But
didn't
there's
even
some,
notice that.
but it came
Okay.
out like just a couple days ago though. So but
because
Marita shared it too with her
Oh, did
folks.
she?
Yeah.
Oh, just with her neighborhood association. Right, right. But I don't know, you probably didn't see a guy, Andrew Hone. Do you know who that is? He's like head of the Portland Chamber, Metro Chamber. He was here. Yeah, he's like a big deal. Downtown stuff.
Great. Love
And
to.
then Maria.
It's better not to know.
I
Yeah.
know. Maria Sipin, who I have met, who works for Mitch Green. Yeah. And see, the thing is, I don't know about you guys, but I can't share this with counselors. I'm not supposed to be communicating with counselors. Me,
Well, I'm not supposed to be either, but
Yeah, yeah. But that's kind of dumb. I think it's short-sighted because this is community, this is education,
Yeah.
at least in this case. So,
yeah. And we did just before so yeah, my comms person was like, have you guys been coordinating with, council to promo this? And I was like, no, I haven't. We just decided to do this 2 weeks ago, but maybe she's going to reach out, or they're going to reach
Oh,
out to council and see if they, mostly I think just so they can advertise it too. And
I know.
then, then they can make themselves look
Right.
good because they're, sharing resources. So
Well, and then also they would be hearing the questions, in their districts, what people are concerned about. So, and that was interesting that somebody asked about the Vienna trip. And
it was like
then
wrong level.
well, she could answer it, and she wrote something in the chat.
Oh,
Maria.
cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Maria
You'll
did?
see. Yeah, she explained what they were doing, and
Great.
yeah, so that was kind of cool,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, you don't know what people are going to ask, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I'm much more in the weeds than that. It's just high level,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your
Yeah. Yeah.
grace and all that stuff. I think it was, yeah, it would have been.
Well, it might help to maybe like Valeria was there, maybe she could answer some of the questions in the chat. I don't know if you guys, maybe for next time that might help because you answering them did take a lot of time. I'm not that much time, but it took some time.
Yeah.
And I think this is me saying this, that me asking the questions save time, right? Because you know how people tend to go on and on. So that's kind of why I did that. So hopefully that sort of shortened it, but just something to think about. Yeah, for
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, send me the chat
Yeah.
and yeah, it's it's the way it is. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad it's
Yeah.
done. And
Yeah. I get you.
and we'll have to get our ducks in a row for the next one. And I mean for the notices one.
Mhm,
That's still
mhm.
that's
Oh,
still under
okay.
development. Yeah.
So like next year, right? I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
probably
Yeah.
early in the year. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Good. All right, Joan, have a nice evening.
Okay. Can you
Take
send me
care.
the recording of this too? Or that's just gonna be on
Yeah,
the
I'll get that from the D4 office tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Thanks,
See
Mary.
you.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.